Hi everyone. Okay, so today's topic is from fractions to percent. So you're going to be doing a few tasks on Google Slides. So if you were given this image, we can see that there are, well, actually, first of all, what is our question? So the question that we're being asked is, what percentage of yellow is in the rectangle? So I'm going to create a ratio table, which is the same thing as a fraction table because ratio and fractions are the same thing. The only difference is that a typical fraction is comparing the part to the whole, whereas a ratio is a specific kind of fraction where you're comparing two parts, possibly, or two distinct things, as opposed to just the whole. But anyways, we're not going to worry too much about that. For this question, you are asked to compare the yellow to the whole rectangle. Okay, so I'm going to create my table, and the part that I'm talking about is 4 yellow, and I'm comparing that to the total rectangle, which is going to be 10 pieces. Okay, so 4 out of the 10 are yellow. Now, because I'm trying to find percent, I have to say, okay, how am I going to get this to be out of 100? Because percent is per 100, because cent means 100, and per, so is per cent, per 100. So I have to figure out what would I need to multiply that denominator, so the number on the bottom, what would I have to multiply that by to get 100, to turn this into 100? Well, 10 times 10 is going to give me 100. So I'm going to multiply the bottom by 10 to get 100. And as we know with equivalent fractions, whatever we do to the bottom, we have to do to the top. So I'm also going to multiply this 4 by 10 to get 40. So now that I have a fraction out of 100, then it's very easy to see what my percent is, because out of 100, it's going to be 40. So my percent is 40%. All right, let's look at another example. So in this case, we have a design, and once again, we're being asked for the percentage of the whole design is shaded green. So once again, we're looking at part versus whole. So here we're going to say 3 out of the 4 are shaded green. Now I know that I have to get to 100 because I'm being asked about percent. But I'm not totally sure what to multiply 4 by to get to 100. Or I can do it in a maybe with my mental math a little easier. So I know that 20 is a nice number to multiply eventually to get me to 100. So instead of going directly to 100, I'm going to actually multiply this by 5 because I find that easier. So I'm going to go 4 times 5, that gives me 20. And what I do on the bottom, I also have to do on the top to keep that fraction equal, to make it an equivalent fraction. So I'm going to go on the top, I'm going to also times by 5, and I know that 3 times 5 is 15. So from here, I've done part of the way to 100. So now I have to say, okay, what am I going to times? I'm going to look at that bottom number again. What am I going to times 20 by to get me to 100? Okay, well, 5 20s give me 100. So I'm going to go 20 times 5 is equal to 100. And what I do on the bottom, I also have to do on the top, but I can't just quickly in my head figure out what 5 times 15 is. So I'm going to go off to the side here and I'm going to go, okay, so 5 times 15, I know that's the same thing as 5 times 10 plus 5. So I know that, so I'm going to multiply 5 times 10 and then 5 times 5, and that will give me my solution of 15 times 5. So this is called the distributive property. We've done this before. So 5 times 10 is 50, and 5 times 5 is 25. And when I add those together, I get 75. So 15 times 5 is 75. So I can put that in my table. And now I have a fraction out of 100, so that's my percent. And so I can write my percentage as 75%. Okay, so here is another example. So in this one, once again, we are asked for the percentage of blue that's in the rectangle. So I'm going to go, there's my part whole again. So 14 out of 20 are blue. Okay, so out of 20, that one I've done before. So that one's a pretty nice one. So I know that if I multiply 20 by 5, that's going to give me 100. So, which is great because that's what I'm looking for when I'm looking for percent. So what I do to the bottom, I have to do to the top to keep that equivalent fraction. So 14 times 5, but once again, not something I can do quickly in my head. So off to the side, I'm going to write down, okay, so 5 times 14 is the same thing as 5 times 10, and then 5 times 4. So I know 5 times 10 is 50, 5 times 4 is 20, which is going to, when I add them together, give me 70. So I can put that in my table. So now 70 out of 100 is the same, is an equivalent fraction to 14 out of 20. So I know my percent, or my percentage, is going to be 70. All right, last one. Okay, so with this image, I'm asked for the percentage of pink in the rectangle. So once again, it's a part whole fraction, which is going to be, as I can see, 4 out of the 5 are shaded pink. Okay, so once again, I know I need to get to 100, but it's not, I think what I would want to do here is I'm going to get my denominator, so the number on the bottom, to be 10, because that one's easy to get to 100 then. So I know if I times 5 by 2, that will get me to 10. So what I do to the bottom, I'm going to do to the top, and I'm going to get 4 times 2, which is 8. So now that I have that, I can say, how am I going to get my denominator of 10 to be 100? Well, if I times 10 by 10, I know I can get 100. What I do to the bottom, I have to do to the top. Okay, so I'm going to also multiply that 8 by 10, and that's going to give me 80. So now I have my fraction out of 100, and so my percentage is easy. So my percent is 80. So 80%. All right, so there will be a very short video describing the task for today in Google Slides. So you can also quickly spend a few minutes just watching that if you need a bit more clarification on what you're supposed to do in the task. All right, keep your questions. Bye for now.